The corners of Tsunade's mouth twitched, and the words in her ears became more and more exaggerated. Said everything that Tsunade's medical skills are not worthy of Naruto's shoelifting. This group of onlookers dared to say anything in order to flatter Naruto. Shizune looked at Tsunade tremblingly, wanting to reach out his hand to comfort, but afraid of implicating himself. The hand is raised and frozen there, neither is it lowered, nor is it stretched out. Full of tangles. Sudden. Tsunade looked up suddenly. Shizune backed away startled. I saw Tsunade walking up with a gloomy face, grabbing the collar of the most serious guy who was hilarious, and throwing him back mercilessly. This guy flew directly to the roof, and his upper body was directly inserted into the roof, leaving only 2 legs twitching like praying mantises. The movement here immediately attracted the attention of the onlookers. They turned to look at Tsunade one after another, and after feeling Tsunade's menacing look, they retreated involuntarily one by one. The crowd suddenly parted away, as if supplying their queen. With a gloomy face, Tsunade came to Naruto step by step. At this time, Naruto just finished the treatment, and Ya and Xiaoli carried him away. Tsunade immediately sat down bold and grandiose, staring at Naruto. Do you dare to make gestures with my old lady, 250? Before Naruto could speak, another person appeared from the crowd. Who are you? Don't think you can do whatever you want with big breasts. Do you know that this little brother is a living god of medicine, just because you don't know where he came from? Tsunade turned his head abruptly, with a fierce look in his eyes, and he accurately found the person who was speaking in the crowd. Stared at by Tsunade's eyes, the high-mouthed guy in the crowd shut up immediately, feeling that if he said one more word, he might get killed. Tsunade stared at the crowd and said angrily, My old lady is Tsunade. My old lady wants to see, if my medical skills are compared with his, is it not even worthy of lifting shoes? It's over. The onlookers were suddenly dumbfounded. How could they expect that the famous Tsunade would appear here? That's the legendary Sannin. How could it appear in such a remote place? She is the legendary Tsunade princess? Doesn't she look too young? But the voice is very majestic, it doesn't look like the face. As expected of the legendary Sannin, even his figure is legendary. Now there's a good show to watch. It is rumored that Tsunade-ji, the top medical ninja, faces the younger brother who is a living god of medicine. This level of medical ninjutsu duel will definitely be an eye-opener. It is indeed rare to see them, but they need to have enough patience to show their medical skills. Just because of those of us with minor illnesses and minor injuries, we can't appreciate how powerful they are at all. Could it be that this time we can only stop here? That's really a pity. Wait. Have you noticed Daejeon's injury? It's not an ordinary injury, and I remember that they seem to be members of the mine team. What do you mean? The expressions of the onlookers changed. Did something happen to the mine? Just when they thought so. A figure ran over in a hurry. Doctor! Doctor! Find a doctor! The shrill shouts attracted everyone's attention. Naruto and Tsunade rushed out immediately, because both of them are doctors. The onlookers were stunned when they saw the shouting person. It's someone from the mine. Did something really happen? Mines are the lifeblood of Pamphlet Street. Without the high income brought by the mines, there would not be so many small casinos on Pamphlet Street. Moreover, the family members of many onlookers work in the mine. Naruto supported the panting visitor and said carefully, Don't worry. Take your breath first and speak slowly. However, the man just looked anxious, pulled Naruto and said, Doctor. Come on, come with me. There are a lot of injuries, it's serious. Naruto and Tsunade dare not delay. Choji went straight up and carried the man on his back. I'll carry you on my back, just show us the way. The man was taken aback, surprised by Choji's strength. Even though he was only a child, he could easily carry an adult like him on his back. However, he also knew that he should act in a hurry, and he didn't have time to take care of it now. Go east, the mine has collapsed. The faces of the people present suddenly changed. It was just a guess, but now it has become a reality. Da Tian and Xiao Tian ran back from the mine after being injured. Naruto said with a serious face, Walk. Swish. Swish swish swish. Naruto took the lead and disappeared in place. Others followed suit. In an instant, the onlookers saw that the children from Konoha had all disappeared. It's really scary. Is this a ninja? It disappeared in an instant. They are obviously a group of children. This can also show the strength of our country of fire. We should be thankful that we live in the country of fire. I heard that people in other countries are living in dire straits. That's right. That's right. Thank you, mother, for giving birth to me in the land of fire. Tsunade also left together. She was surprised by Naruto's body flicker technique. It was almost the same speed as hers. If Tsunade knew that this was not Naruto's full strength, his jaw would drop in shock. Under Naruto's speed, they arrived at the mine soon. At this time, the mine is carrying out rescue operations in full swing. Naruto glanced at it and immediately arranged the task. Neji, Hinata, you use your white eyes to find the survivors in the mine, and the others are under the command of Neji to save people. Master Tsunade and I are here to save people, so we need to act faster. Everyone act immediately. Naruto took out a scroll, opened it and slammed 2 medical bags from it, and handed one of them to Tsunade. After taking it, Tsunade rummaged through it, and found that there were all kinds of medical equipment inside, and said in surprise. Well prepared. Well, it seems that the medical exchange between us can start smoothly. This challenge is not small for me, so you must not force it, little brother. Hearing the word little brother, Naruto frowned fiercely. Although Naruto's current age is indeed a younger brother in Tsunade's opinion. But Naruto, who came here as an adult, must be full of discomfort. But now is not the time to talk about this. Saving people is the most important thing. At this time, a fat middle-aged man who seemed to be in charge came over. The fat middle-aged man was directing people to carry out rescue work, and when he saw Naruto and the others appearing in a flash, and then began to help in the rescue, he immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Although he is very young, the addition of ninjas will undoubtedly greatly improve the rescue work. And the fat middle-aged man also saw the person he sent to find a doctor. Since this person also came with him, it means that the doctor should also come. The fat middle-aged man came straight to Tsunade. Compared with Naruto, who looks like a child, it is obvious that Tsunade, who is an adult, looks more like a doctor in the eyes of the fat middle-aged man. Excuse me, are you a doctor? We have many seriously injured patients here, please treat them immediately. Please don't worry about the medical expenses, as long as the person can be cured, everything is fine. Tsunade's eyes lit up, just as she was short of some gambling money recently. So she patted the fat middle-aged man on the shoulder and said, "Leave it to us with confidence." The fat middle-aged man froze for a moment. Us? Tsunade pointed to Naruto and said, "This kid and I will take care of the patients, and take us to the patients quickly." The fat middle-aged man was stunned when he saw Naruto. When he looked back, he was shocked by Naruto's age. Even though he only regarded Naruto as Tsunade's assistant, Naruto's age surprised him. Oh, good. I'll take you there now. Regardless of whether Naruto is an assistant or not, the most important thing now is to treat these people under him. Otherwise, if the treatment is not timely, they will cause a quarrel with their families, and the loss will be even greater. Fat middle-aged people can't afford this responsibility. So the fat middle-aged man didn't dare to neglect, and immediately took Tsunade and Naruto to the temporary tent where the patients were placed. As soon as I entered the tent, I heard various crying voices coming from inside. My legs. I can't feel my waist anymore. Is my brother can't get up? My God. I don't want to die yet. Help me. Naruto frowned. It was the first time he had seen such a scene. But Tsunade, who has experienced the war, has long been accustomed to these things. She quickly entered the working state, and went directly to the nearest person to start checking. Naruto took a step slower, and followed suit to start examination and treatment. The mine cave collapsed, and these people were only slightly scratched, and a simple treatment would be fine. But the serious ones are all missing arms and legs, which looks extremely miserable. Fortunately, most of the broken hands and 3.5 feet have been recovered, otherwise there is no way to get them back. Tsunade happened to be a patient with a broken leg. Tsunade opened the medical kit and started debridement, and then made preparations for the splicing of the broken limb. Naruto's hands and feet are also very nimble, and he started to treat a man with a broken arm. The movements of the two were uniform: debridement, fixation, suture, connection, and healing. After a whole set of movements, the treatment ended almost at the same time. Seeing that Naruto was able to keep up with him, Tsunade immediately raised his eyebrows. But she didn't speak. There were too many patients at the scene, and she had to race against time. Naruto is the same, he has rushed to the next patient. The fat middle-aged man was dumbfounded. Naruto, who he thought was his assistant, unexpectedly showed such strong medical skills. But immediately after that, the fat middle-aged man was overjoyed. The more people who can be treated, the better. People with broken arms and legs were quickly dealt with by Naruto and Tsunade. They spent less than 10 minutes on each patient. Everyone looked at their operations, and there was hope in their eyes. Who would want to be a disabled person if they could? It is best to be cured. Under the quick treatment of Naruto and Tsunade, the abrasions in the severed limbs were quickly cleaned up. Then, there are some people who have broken their fingers and toes. Although it seems that the injury is milder than the severed limb, the operation is more difficult. Tsunade took a deep breath and made himself God. He glanced at Naruto next to him, and at this time Naruto was seriously cleaning the wound of a man who had lost his finger. Seeing that his progress was lagging behind in the game, Tsunade stopped hesitating and started to clean up immediately. Because the blood vessels and nerves in the fingers and toes are thinner, the speed of Naruto and Tsunade is also much slower. But even so, it only took them about 15 minutes to deal with one patient. Looking at the efficiency of the two, the fat middle-aged man became more and more happy. Even at this time, there are still people who have not been rescued. An hour later, there were only 2 patients left in the tent. Also 2 of the worst in the tent. Tsunade exhaled lightly, looked at Naruto and said, "The speed is not bad, it can keep up with me." Naruto said, walking towards the patient who was closer to him. "It's just basic skills." Tsunade froze. "Basic skills? You call this basic skills? The only one in the whole ninja world who can keep up with the speed of my old lady is the puppet old woman from San Shinobi. So you call this basic skills? Bragging is not like that. Cows can't take it." Veins popped out of Tsunade's face. But she still took a few deep breaths to remind herself that treatment is important. To teach Naruto after that. 18 Now, it is important to deal with the patient at hand. This time the patient did not have a severed limb, only some abrasions on the outside. But according to Tsunade's judgment, there have been multiple internal fractures, and the most important thing is that the patient cannot feel the lower body. It is not known whether the nerve was severed or squeezed. If it is squeezed, as long as the position of the bone can be adjusted, it can return to normal. But if cut by a broken bone, stitches are required. The nerves there are very dense, and one of them might be connected to the wrong nerve. The patients on Naruto's side are similar to those on Tsunade's side. At this time, Naruto has already started, and quickly figured out the location and number of the patient's fractures. Tsunade was not to be outdone, and quickly confirmed that the patient's nerves on his side were not severed, but oppressed. As long as the position of the fracture is adjusted, the patient can regain consciousness. Treatment begins quickly. Others who were treated could no longer feel pain at this time. Although the originally broken limbs can't move violently now, it's okay to move around briefly. They looked at Tsunade and Naruto gratefully, and also curious about their treatment process. Even if they have just seen the process of being treated before. After confirming the location of the fracture, Naruto condensed chakra scalpel in his hand, cut the skin with a knife, and then began to correct the position of the bone. As a result, after opening it, Naruto found that there were traces of broken internal organs, which were all made by broken ribs. Fortunately, it was discovered in time, and with the excellent healing speed of healing jutsu, the wound healed quickly. It's the same with Tsunade, but she already guessed. After all, she has dealt with countless patients, so this situation is naturally expected. Tsunade treated him calmly, taking time to check on Naruto's progress. Although this kid is very twitchy, his speed is indeed not slow. Tsunade was getting more and more upset. It is mainly Naruto's attitude that makes Tsunade very dissatisfied. In Tsunade's view, Naruto's attitude is just pretending. But if they let Shikamaru know, they will definitely say that this is Naruto. Because Naruto is too demanding of himself. After all, with the involution system, if you don't demand more from yourself, how can you trigger the system? After about half an hour of treatment, the two finished treating the patient's fractured part and the ruptured internal organs successively. After Tsunade corrects all the bones, releases the compressed nerves, and confirms that the patient re-perceives the existence of the lower body, he starts suturing. There is no need to suture the nerve on Tsunade's side, but it is needed on Naruto's side. This also caused Naruto's progress to be slower than Tsunade's. This is understandable. But Naruto doesn't think so. I'm still too slow. Sure enough, Tsunade's speed is still very fast. I still need to keep working hard. After all, there is one more cumbersome step than Tsunade, and it is normal for Naruto to be slower than Tsunade. How to say, Tsunade is also the #1 medical ninja in the current ninja world. Naruto has only been practicing medical ninjutsu for a few days. To be able to reach this level, in the eyes of outsiders, is already a very shocking thing. It took another 5 minutes for Naruto to finish all the treatments. Good job, it's a tie this time. Tsunade, who had been waiting by the side, crossed his arms and said. Naruto frowned slightly and said, I lost this round. Tsunade raised his eyebrows in surprise and said. The little guy is quite proud? Do you really want to win me? Impossible. Even if your talent is outstanding, but in terms of experience, you are only 7 years old, how can you compare with me? Naruto was silent. In fact, in terms of experience, Naruto is much better than Tsunade. After all, Naruto has a team of 3,000 avatars, and in the past few days, he has undergone thousands of surgeries. That's a lot of experience. Just then, there were some noisy footsteps outside. Naruto and Tsunade's attention was immediately attracted. This kind of footsteps may mean that some patients have appeared again. It also means that the medical duel between the two is not over yet. The curtain of the tent was lifted, and what appeared was a fat middle-aged man with an anxious face. Quick, move out of the position. Behind the fat middle-aged man, Xiaoli and others carefully calculated and carried a seriously injured person. Seeing this person for the first time, Tsunade frowned. Judging from her experience, this person no longer needs treatment. There are many fractures on the body, and there must be damage to internal organs, but these are just trivial matters. She has dealt with all the patients with lower body paralysis that she had treated before. But the most important and most troublesome thing is that the bloody wound on the man's neck told Tsunade that the man's nerves may have been completely destroyed. In other words, this person has been completely paralyzed. Even if all the wounds on the body are treated, it is of no use at all. The rest of the man's life can only be spent in bed. There's no cure for this man, Tsunade said bluntly. I will treat the fractures on his body, but his cervical spine is seriously injured, and after so long, I am afraid that the nerves have died. I'm afraid he can only lie in bed for the rest of his life. When the fat middle-aged man heard this, he panicked. Is there really no other way? Can you try it? Maybe it can be saved? This person is his brother-in-law, and he did not expect to be injured so badly. As soon as Tsunade said that he could only spend the rest of his life lying in bed, the fat middle-aged man immediately panicked. If it can't be cured, the family will be in trouble. Tsunade frowned. Can't be cured. As she spoke, she rolled up her sleeves, motioned for Xiaoli and the others to put the patient down, and then prepared to deal with the injury. Then Naruto said, I can cure. Tsunade raised his head with a swish, his eyes fixed on Naruto. What did you say? Naruto withdrew his gaze from looking at the patient's neck, raised his head and said seriously. I said, I can treat this patient. Tsunade immediately put down the operation in his hands, crossed his arms and said. Okay. Let me see how you do it. Naturally, Tsunade didn't believe that Naruto could do it. After all, she had just passed her judgment. The nerves are all dead, and you still can't judge how many dead nerves, how many parts should be removed, and how to connect the nerves accurately. In Tsunade's view, there is no cure for this situation. Since you say it can be cured, then treat it. If it can be cured, I lose. Tsunade thought rather angrily. Looked at Naruto seriously, even a little seriously. Although it is a competition, Tsunade doesn't want Naruto to mess around. Naturally, Naruto wouldn't mess around. Naturally, Naruto has experienced this kind of surgery many times. However, he still spent more than half an hour on the phone to deal with the patient's physical problems. Then I started to deal with the neck problem. Debride the wound first, then carefully incise the wound. The rich experience allowed Naruto to immediately identify the dead nerve. He cut off the necrotic nerves neatly, and then connected the fresh ones. The whole technique is quick, regulates emotions, without any wavering. Tsunade watched with a frown, and wanted to ask a few times, but worried about disturbing Naruto's treatment, he could only hold back. 15 minutes later, all nerves were reconnected. Naruto tried the patient's reaction and found that everything was normal, so the group ended the treatment. Alright. After all the wounds were treated with healing jutsu, Naruto straightened up and said. The fat middle-aged man rushed up immediately, holding Naruto's hand in a burst of gratitude. Thank you. Thank you so much. If he is really paralyzed for the rest of his life. Really, thank you so much. Tsunade looked at Naruto with complicated expressions, finally sighed helplessly, and said with a wry smile. You won. Naruto frowned slightly and said. What won? Aren't we treating diseases and saving lives? Tsunade was dumb, then said with a faint smile. I'm too utilitarian. Yes, we are saving lives. After all the wounded have been treated, I will invite you to dinner. The fat middle-aged man said immediately. I'll treat you to this meal. Please don't be polite. The rewards that should be given to everyone will definitely not be less. Hearing the reward, Tsunade's eyes lit up, and he stopped the fat middle-aged man's neck and said. How much can you give? The fat middle-aged man said. Surely not less. After that, Naruto and Tsunade rescued several people one after another, and this sudden mine accident was successfully ended. Under the cooperation of Naruto and Tsunade, there was not even a single dead person in this mine disaster, and even the injured were properly dealt with in the first time. Even the one who was the most seriously injured and almost paralyzed, I believe that after a week or two of training, he can return to normal. This is also the charm of medical ninjutsu. If it is rescued through ordinary medical methods, I am afraid that strenuous exercise will not be considered within a few months. It is even possible to stay away from all kinds of heavy physical activities in this life. After the end, under the leadership of the person in charge, fat middle-aged, a group of people came to the largest restaurant on the street. As for the injured, the fat middle-aged man arranged for them to be sent home properly. At the dinner table, little Sakura and the others looked at their idols, but they were stiff and speechless. Tooth with a carefree personality greeted Tsunade first. Are you really the legendary Sannin, Master Tsunade? Ya still couldn't believe it, even after seeing Tsunade's medical prowess. After all, this is a legendary figure. Although I came here with Naruto, I just came here to find Tsunade. But I never imagined that I could really meet the legendary Tsunade. Shikamaru patted his teeth on the head, and said to Tsunade with a smile. Sorry, this kid is like this, he doesn't know how to speak. If his words made you uncomfortable, I am here to apologize on behalf of his parents. Tsunade said generously, it's okay, no problem. Your hair. Are you Nara Shikahisa's child? If you're here, the other two from Ino Shikacho should be there too, right? Then he looked at his teeth and said. Look at you with the puppy, are you a child of the Inuzuka family? There's also the Uchiha family and the Hyuga family, I'm not surprised to see you guys. Tsunade had a look of emotion on his face. Since leaving the village, the characteristics of these villages are really hard to see. Afterwards, looking at Naruto was full of emotion. Especially you, I didn't expect that among Konoha's descendants, you would have mastered such a strong medical ninjutsu at this age. By the way, how did you make sure that your nerves were not connected wrongly when you just treated the patient with a cervical spine problem? Naruto said silently, it's just familiar. These words seem to be very understatement, but there are countless experiences in it. Tsunade could hear it, but was very surprised. After all, Naruto looks only 7 or 8 years old, and how he speaks seems to have undergone thousands of similar operations. Tsunade was surprised, but he didn't want to pursue it, and sighed. Then it seems that you have been very specialized in medical ninjutsu since you were a child. According to Tsunade, there are no shortcuts in medical ninjutsu, and not just because of the extremely precise control of chakra. It is because of things like surgery. What is needed is experience, not talent. Talent can only be used for beginners, and Grandmaster only needs experience, and the more experience you get, the more experience you get. Little Sakura said at this time, no, Master Tsunade. Naruto-kun has only recently learned medical ninjutsu. At least before the Chinese New Year, Naruto-kun will not know medical ninjutsu. Before the Chinese New Year, they could see Naruto who was actively preparing for the Chinese New Year everywhere. So little Sakura knew that Naruto didn't know medical ninjutsu at that time, at least they didn't see Naruto practice medical ninjutsu. Only during the period after the Chinese New Year, when little Sakura and the others practiced alone, instead of practicing with Naruto, could Naruto practice medical ninjutsu. Tsunade's eyes widened. Impossible. Tsunade blurted out, and Shizune covered his mouth in surprise. As a medical ninja, Shizune knows too well how time-consuming it is to practice medical ninjutsu. Seeing that Tsunade and Shizune didn't believe it, Xiaoqiang immediately talked about Naruto's past achievements. What is the body flicker technique that is as fast as Flying Thunder God? The evasion technique that avoids the siege of dozens of people at the same time, the blasting technique that can be carved on rocks, the Rasengan with a diameter of several meters, the Imperial Sword flying 10,000 swords and so on. After the whole list was said, Tsunade gradually became skeptical from the initial shock. Tsunade, who hadn't seen it with his own eyes, really couldn't believe that this is something that people can do. Because he is more aware of the hard work and hardships of ninja training. In the end, someone told her that a boy who was only 7 years old had surpassed most of the entire ninja world. As long as Tsunade is a normal person, it is impossible to believe such a thing. Okay, let's not talk about this, let's eat food and drink. Seeing the delicacies being served one after another, Tsunade immediately changed the topic, not wanting to discuss these unlikely things with Xiaoqiang and the others. She only exaggerated Naruto's strength as Xiaoqiang. After all, they are all a group of children, and they haven't seen a real ninja fight yet, so they probably have a misunderstanding of the ninja's strength. What's more, when Tsunade's favorite wine was brought to the table, the only bottle of wine was left in her eyes. Soon, the alcoholic Tsunade got drunk, but little Sakura and others didn't care. In other words, Tsunade is easier to touch than usual after being drunk. Tsunade, who was not drunk, had a sense of majesty in his speech, which made Sakura and the others feel difficult to contact. After getting drunk, this feeling disappears quickly. Soon everyone started talking and laughing again. Master Tsunade, I heard that Master Jiraiya once pursued you, is it true? Ino looked curious and added 8 trigrams. The drunken Tsunade waved his hand. Jiraiya, I'm an old pervert, but she's lustful, beautiful, and courageous, and she's a complete kid. Choji asked curiously. I heard from my father that he is not your opponent in terms of strength, is it true? Tsunade looked at Choji with bleary eyes. Whose family are you? Oh, it's from the Akamichi family, that's your father's self-effacing. Who is your father? Is it Ding Zuo? His strength is still acceptable. If he exerts his full strength, his strength should be similar to mine. Little Sakura asked curiously and puzzled. Master Tsunade, why did you leave Konoha in the first place? When do you plan to go back? Upon hearing this, Tsunade stared blankly at little Sakura for a while, and then spoke. Because of what? I can't remember. Forget it, it's nothing important. Well, it can't be done, I have to go to the toilet, I drank too fast. Saying that, Tsunade stumbled to his feet. Shizune quickly stood up and wanted to help, but Tsunade waved his hand and refused. You don't need to help me, I'm fine. As Tsunade said, he staggered out of the private room and came to the toilet. After entering the toilet, the dazed look on Tsunade's face disappeared immediately. Although her face was still flushed with drunkenness, her eyes were very bright. It was obvious that she had faked the drunkenness just now. Tsunade had expected that someone would ask this question during the dinner. And this problem is something Tsunade has never wanted to face. Konoha or something, I don't want to go back. Tsunade thought to himself. Although, the feelings for Dei Tsunade are not superficial. But what she experienced at the beginning still made her very disappointed. Her heart was so dead that she couldn't say it, but her enthusiasm was refuted by her teacher, which made her unacceptable. What's more, his younger brother and lover died on the battlefield one after another. As a result, Tsunade broke out with third generation not long after the war, and thus left Konoha. But at the end of the day, Konoha was built by Tsunade's grandfather. How could Tsunade have no feelings? It's a pity that there is no place for her in the current Konoha. Even the Senju clan has disappeared in Konoha. She, the orphan of the Senju family, why bother to go to that water? The current Konoha is completely different from the Konoha in her memory. After Tsunade finished urinating, he returned to the private room. As a result, look back, where's Naruto? Did he go to the toilet too? Tsunade asked casually, sat down in his seat, and then saw Shizune with a strange smile on his face. Then I heard little Sakura say, no, Mr. Naruto went to practice. Ino also said, Naruto-kun is working so hard, that's why he became so strong. Shikamaru also said, Master Tsunade, don't worry, Naruto is just like that, he is a well-known cultivator among us. Tsunade was dumbfounded. Isn't it already night? How can I go to practice after eating well? Tooth said. By the way, Naruto came here this time to find you, Master Tsunade. We also wanted to meet the legendary person, so we came here to join in the fun. We didn't expect to actually meet Master Tsunade. Tsunade looked surprised. He came to see me? No one should know about my situation here? How did it get exposed? Tsunade was puzzled. What are you looking for me for? Did something happen in the village? Little Sakura shook her head and said. Naruto-kun came to Tsunade-sama to learn medical ninjutsu. Master Tsunade was dumbfounded again. No, your medical ninjutsu is stronger than mine. Do you need me? Isn't this pure waste of time? Could it be that there are too few Konoha medical ninjas, and they don't know their own strength to come to her from afar? What a weird kid, Tsunade said with emotion. It's weird in every way. 3. Medical ninjutsu is very good, this is what I saw firsthand. Then there is the ninjutsu strength that is dubious, and I have never seen it with my own eyes. Cultivation is very hard, because I suddenly ran to practice because I was eating in the middle of the night. It's a bit like cultivating a madman. I thought it was just an ordinary day, but I didn't expect to meet such a strange child. But whatever. At least his idea has been achieved, should he leave tomorrow. Anyway, it is impossible for me to teach him medical ninjutsu. There is nothing to teach him. Woke up the next day. Still a splitting headache from a hangover. Tsunade didn't know what time he came back. Anyway, I don't remember drinking while drinking. Even yesterday's experience was a bit erratic, feeling like a dream, full of unreality. After all, a 7-year-old child has surpassed her, the #1 medical ninja in the ninja world, in terms of medical ninjutsu. This is said, but any normal person will not think it is true. Shizune! Shizune! Tsunade yelled loudly with a headache. But Shizune, who usually appeared with a glass of water at this time, did not appear, and the whole room was silent. Have you gone out? Tsunade frowned, then struggled to get up and went to the kitchen to fetch himself a glass of water. I feel much better after drinking it. Later, a note left by Shizune was found on the table. With a casual glance, Tsunade looked away. Go shopping for groceries. By the way, what time is it? Back in the room, the curtains were opened wide. Immediately, the bright sunshine rushed into the room and scattered the darkness. Tsunade narrowed his eyes unconsciously, and raised his hand to cover his eyes. It's almost noon. Squinting his eyes, he looked at the position of the sun and confirmed the current time. It will take a while to come back depending on the situation. It's better to go for a walk, which happens to also exercise the body. Having made up his mind, Tsunade changed his clothes and went out. There are not many people on the street. Today's weather is good. It's good for your body to go out and bask in the sun. Speaking of which, I don't know what's going on now. Without us thorny heads, that guy Danzo must be calling the wind and rain in Konoha. Well, the teacher is too kind to his colleagues, so he can resist Danzo's unreasonable demands. If it's me. Alas, forget it, let's not talk about it. Tsunade shook his head and sighed, silently came to the corner. After turning a corner, the loud voice of 953 came into Tsunade's ears. Tsunade looked up suspiciously, and the next moment, his eyes widened. Tsunade opened his mouth wide in surprise, and looked at the blonde boy who was setting up a stall not far away in disbelief. Shouldn't they be gone? Why are they still there? Isn't his reason for staying here gone? Tsunade rushed up in a panic, squeezed away the patients who were inquiring, and sat down. Why didn't you leave? Haven't you already defeated me? There is no medical ninja in this ninja world that is your opponent. Why don't you hurry back to Konoha and stay? Naruto said seriously. As a doctor, isn't it my duty to save lives? And my medical skills are far from up to standard, and I need to continue to work hard. Tsunade yelled in shock. You don't meet the standard. If you don't meet the standard, what am I who loses to you? Didn't I get started? Naruto shook his head and said. This is my standard for myself, just like Master Tsunade has his own standard for himself, and it only applies to himself. I just think that if you want to be a qualified Konoha shinobi practitioner, you have to be strict with yourself in all aspects. Tsunade was dumbfounded, really didn't know what to say. At this time, an old man with a cane walked over gropingly, and everyone gave way. Excuse me, is this Mr. Naruto, the god of medicine? Tsunade turned around, and immediately saw the old man's eyes with almost completely white sockets. Unlike Hyuga's white-eyed bloodline, this old man's eyes are due to blindness. And depending on the situation, at least 10 years have passed. In this case, it is impossible to heal. For such a long time in the past, the nerves may have been necrotic. How can it be cured? Even changing eyes is impossible. After all, the old man is not a ninja. Without the assistance of chakra, he cannot plug and play like a ninja. I am Naruto, but not the god of medicine. Naruto stepped forward to support the old man, placed him on the ground and said, "Please sit down and let me look into the old gentleman's eyes." After the old man sat down, he sighed and said, "At first I didn't want to come, but my son kept persuading me, saying that Mr. Naruto's medical skills are the living god of medicine. I can't beat my son, so I can only come here with a thick skin." Naruto said with a smile, "Don't worry, I'll do my best." The old man is not very hopeful. He also knows that his eyes have been blind for more than 10 years, and it is impossible to cure it. As he himself said, he really couldn't hold back his son, so he came to the free booth of Naruto with the cheek. Naruto carefully rolled the old man's eyes and observed, then said, "Anesthetisation." Sasuke, who was already familiar with the process, immediately controlled his strength and knocked the old man unconscious. "The equipment is poor, and that's all there is to it." Tsunade said immediately, "Are you sure? After so many years, his eye nerves must have shrunk and died." Naruto shook his head and said, "As a doctor, you must be cautious enough to face every patient. I won't say that I am 100% sure about this kind of thing, even if I am indeed 100% sure. But I think Master Tsunade is also very clear that there is no such thing as 100% for any surgery. There will always be various surprises waiting for you. All I can do is do my best. Only by doing it and talking about yourself." Tsunade had nothing to say and could only be silent. She will then see how Naruto treats this patient. Naruto performed the operation skillfully. First, the nerve is found by incision, and the necrotic and shrinking part is removed. This step was expected by Tsunade. But soon, Naruto's next operation was out of Tsunade's expectation. Naruto didn't know what method he used to grow a part of the nerve. The part that grows out can just connect to the nerve on the eyeball. Then Naruto returned the white pupils to black again. The whole process seemed incredible to Tsunade. "This is too exaggerated." Tsunade was directly stunned. She had never seen this method. If she can learn this method, she can also cure the person who was paralyzed yesterday. The more he thought about it, the more he couldn't figure it out. Tsunade grabbed Naruto. "How did you just do that? How did you grow the nerves?" Naruto said doubtfully outside. "It's very simple. Wouldn't it be good to use Yongdun chakra?" That expression seemed to say, "Don't you know such a simple thing?" Tsunade was going crazy. Who doesn't know it's Yongdun? Medical ninjutsu is Yongdun. What I want to ask is, how did you do it? After finishing the debate with the lady in the vegetable market, Shizune returned home with a full harvest. However, upon returning home, Shizune smelled very strongly of alcohol. What's going on? Did Tsunade-sama vomit? Shizune put the bought dishes on the table in a panic, and hurriedly found Tsunade. Then I saw Tsunade sitting in his room. In front of him was a small table with a few flutters on it, which was empty. Equally empty were a dozen empty bottles on the ground. Shizune was dumbfounded. How can I drink it when I buy a dish? And drink so much? What stimulated this? Shizune hurriedly stepped forward to kneel down and pushed Tsunade, who was lying on the table. "Master Tsunade? Master Tsunade? Wake up, Tsunade raised his head in a daze, and when he saw that it was Shizune, he immediately showed a silly smile. "It's Shizune. Why did you just come back? There's not enough wine." Shizune looked at the empty wine bottles all over the floor, choking speechlessly. "Isn't that enough for you to drink? Are you trying to drink yourself to death? What happened? Didn't you just drink so much yesterday?" Shizune asked worriedly. "What's up?" Tsunade's eyes were blank for a moment, as if he was thinking about his reason for drinking. Soon, Tsunade thought of the reason, and his eyes suddenly became fierce. "That damned brat. He's already surpassed my old lady, he still won't leave. My mother said that the patients who couldn't be cured were cured in 3 or 2 strokes. It's really disgusting." Shizune was dumbfounded, but quickly realized that the novel should be Naruto. What's going on? Naruto and the others haven't left yet. When Tsunade heard this, the noise became more violent. Go away. I don't think they want to go at all. It's really deceiving. It's already surpassed me. Why don't you leave? Is it intentional? Are you trying to stimulate me? Are you trying to force me to know Konoha? I just won't go back. Through the 2 paragraphs before and after, Shizune probably understood what happened to Tsunade. While she was out shopping for groceries, Tsunade woke up. There is a high probability that I met Naruto who hadn't left while walking, and then Naruto cured a patient that Tsunade thought was impossible to cure in front of Tsunade. Tsunade was stimulated at once, thinking that Naruto had come to stimulate her on purpose. No wonder. After all, before yesterday, both Shizune and Tsunade believed that Tsunade was the scariest person in medical ninjutsu in the entire ninja world. As a result, I met Naruto, an enchanting kid yesterday, and directly overtook her. And today I showed off some operations in front of Tsunade. No wonder Tsunade broke the defense. After Shizune figured out the situation, he persuaded him with kind words. Master Tsunade, please stop acting like a child. Naruto is so kind and honest, it must not be intentional. He is also saving lives. Maybe there are still patients who have not finished treatment, maybe they will leave tomorrow. Calm down, lie down and sleep, and after sleeping and waking up, everything will be over. Shizune said, and changed Tsunade's pajamas when Tsunade didn't cooperate well. Then coaxed Tsunade to lie down and sleep. After coaxing for half an hour, Tsunade fell into a deep sleep. Touching the sweat on his forehead, Shizune smiled helplessly. What is it all about? She shook her head and started to clean up the mess Tsunade had left. Shizune always felt that this scene was somewhat familiar. My head hurts. Tsunade struggled to get up, and came to the bathroom to wash like a walking dead. Looking up at the familiar face in the mirror with disheveled hair, Tsunade couldn't help showing a smirk. Hello. Oh, it's me. The hangover made Tsunade look a little silly. The main reason is that yesterday's drink has not sobered up, and Tsunade drank a lot of relationships, which made the state worse. After a simple wash, Tsunade felt much better. She stroked her aching head, gritted her teeth and made the vow she had made before. I don't drink anymore. Unfortunately, Tsunade didn't believe it himself. Because she has said this sentence for countless times. Just like every gambler firmly believes that this is the last bet. Some are always next. Shizune isn't here? Shizune was not found in the room. Tsunade frowned subconsciously. I wasn't there yesterday, where did I go today? After being stimulated yesterday, Tsunade came back and drank a lot of alcohol, and couldn't remember when Shizune came back. Even in her memory, Shizune never appeared. Forget it, let's go for a stroll. Those brats should have left today, right? It's just a small place after all, where there are so many patients to let them see. Opening the door, the dazzling sunlight shone on Tsunade's body. Tsunade narrowed his eyes subconsciously, blocking the sunlight with his palms, and it took him a while to get used to it. It's really time to stop drinking. With unnecessary exclamations in his mouth, enjoying the warmth of the sun, Tsunade paced away from the house. There were few people on the street. This is also the characteristic of small places. Tsunade sighed as he walked. I have to admit that I'm getting old. The proud medical ninjutsu has been surpassed by such a young child. Have I been abandoned by this era? Oh, time is really a ruthless thing. Terrible. Tsunade shook his head with his hands behind his back, lamenting how time flies. Before she knew it, she was old enough to be someone else's grandmother. It's a pity that this Tsunade princess is not married so far. Of course it was because of the death of her former lover Kato Dan that made her feel ashamed. But after so long, not meeting the right person is also a problem. When a woman reaches a high level of achievement, meeting the right man becomes a big problem. Suddenly, Tsunade heard some loud noises. This made her feel a bad feeling in her heart. No way. Tsunade's heart trembled, and he quickly walked towards the direction of the noisy voice. What caught my eye was a long queue, and the front of the team is that blonde kid. Why haven't you left yet? Tsunade looked at Naruto in shock, disbelief all over his face. Obviously even the 10-year-old blindness yesterday was cured. Are you still not satisfied with your medical skills? Tsunade couldn't accept it. She rushed directly in front of Naruto and slapped her hands on the table. Why haven't you left yet? Haven't you already proved that you are much stronger than me? Naruto looked up, frowning slightly at Tsunade. Master Tsunade, I learned medical ninjutsu to cure diseases and save lives, not to surpass you, Master Tsunade. Is Master Tsunade learning medical ninjutsu just to prove that he is the best medical ninja in the world? No? Moreover, I think my skills are still shallow, and there is still a lot of room for improvement. Tsunade trembled all over. So you're not leaving? Naruto shook his head and said. Naturally, I have to leave. If there are no patients here, there is no need for me to stay here. I will naturally go to the next place. Tsunade turned his head and looked at the long queue. Several people inside had lined up several times. If things go on like this, I'm afraid Naruto will never be able to leave here for the rest of his life. Because even if these people pretend to be sick, they will not let a powerful medical ninja like Naruto leave. You are too whimsical, Tsunade said. Although it is the bounden duty of doctors to save lives, not all diseases can be cured by us. Besides, they all heard what you said just now. They will never let you leave, even if they pretend to be sick, they will force you to stay. Naruto said seriously. Your Majesty Tsunade doesn't need to worry about this. I am very clear about whether the patients are pretending to be sick, and I also understand the repeated cues. I'll take care of myself. Tsunade was short of breath, but had nothing to say. After all, Tsunade couldn't force Naruto to leave. Unless she writes to third generation, let third generation send someone to take Naruto away. But in that case, maybe the third generation will send someone to persuade her to go back. Tsunade didn't want to get himself into trouble. If Master Tsunade has nothing else to do, please don't delay my seeing the patient. Naruto pointed to the long line behind Tsunade and said. Tsunade turned back, and then silently stepped aside. Standing with arms folded and watching. I want to see how long you will stay. Just in time, the next volunteer, Tsunade, has an impression. Because Tsunade saw this person every time he was in line. After the man sat down, he skillfully stretched out his right hand and put it on the table to ask Naruto to feel his pulse. But Naruto just glanced at the man and said, next person. The man became anxious immediately. Doctor, you haven't shown me yet. Naruto recorded something without raising his head, and said in his mouth. Mr. Honda, you have been here 3 times, and I cured you of your headache the first time. The second time you came, you said that your headache recurred, but don't I need to explain the result? So please leave, you are not sick, and don't waste the time of other patients. Honda blushed and said, but my head really hurts. Naruto stopped talking. Meanwhile, Choji and Xiaoli stepped forward and stared at Honda with unkind eyes. Please get out of the way, Xiaoli said seriously. At the same time, he clenched his bandaged fist. Honda swallowed, but his eyes were full of unwillingness, and he wanted to say something. At this time, Honda felt his collar being pulled by someone, and then he was pulled aside. Since you are not sick, don't waste everyone's time. Before Honda could get angry, he heard an impatient voice. Raising his head suddenly, his angry face suddenly turned pale. Because the person who pulled him away was a boss in Banju Street, who was in charge of several casinos. Honda is just a local ruffian, and he dare not have any conflicts with the boss. Yes, Boss Heijing. Honda stepped back obediently, and then ran away quickly. Kuroi sat down and put his hands on the table. Before I heard that you were very effective in curing diseases, then I will trouble my little brother to take a look at my problems. Naruto simply checked his pulse, then looked at the black face and said. A little kidney deficiency, but it's okay. Eat more good supplements, and then control it. If you don't want to lose your masculinity, you must control yourself recently. Probably about 2 months of conditioning should be enough. Hearing Naruto's words, Kuroi's face flushed with embarrassment. But he also knew that he really felt a little powerless recently. Heijing was vaguely aware of his faults, so he didn't open his mouth on purpose. But Naruto opened his mouth without any scruples, as if he took him as a joke. Suddenly there was an unknown fire in his heart, but Kuroi didn't dare to vent his anger with Naruto. Even though Naruto looks very small, no matter how small Naruto is, he is still a powerful ninja. It is not an existence that ordinary people like him can provoke. Because he controls several casinos, Kuroi is more aware of the strength of ninjas. Pooh. A slight chuckle came from behind, which immediately attracted Heijing's attention. Which bastard? Stand up for lousy. Heijing stood up and shouted loudly, but no one dared to speak up. The whole scene was silent. Naruto said with a frown. Don't block it. Let the next one come over quickly. As soon as Kuroi felt that he had regained his glory, he heard Naruto's disgusting words, and suddenly felt unable to hold on to his face. But it is better to be unable to hang on to your face than to be unable to hang on to your life. Hei Jing could only walk aside with a dark face, and then left with a few younger brothers. Sasuke looked at Kuroi leaving with a bored face. Sasuke thought he could move his muscles. It is really boring to help Naruto give physical anesthesia to the guests these days. After finally seeing a guy who seemed to be making trouble, he actually endured it. What a pity. It's just a bunch of rascals who dare not confront ninjas. Tsunade saw Sasuke's eyes, and said silently. Sasuke glanced at Tsunade with fighting intent in his eyes. Then can you fight me? Tsunade frowned suddenly. You may be a genius of the Uchiha clan, but you are still far behind me. I don't like bullying children. Sasuke's face darkened. How do you know if you don't try? Come on. Follow me to the side to make gestures. Tsunade waved his hand like dismissing a child, and looked at the next patient. I'm not interested in playing with children. If I want to play, go and play by myself. Sasuke suddenly clenched his fists, his face full of anger. The next patient was a young man with a very pale face. They came together tremblingly with the support of his wife. The young man sat down and let out a long sigh of relief. The wife spoke instead of the man. Please save my husband. He felt a pain in his stomach, as if a sharp knife was stirring it, and he was so weak that he even vomited blood. Naruto frowned. Lu Mai then looked at the patient's face and said. How is the patient's stool? The wife was taken aback. What? Naruto repeated. I mean, is there anything unusual about the patient's stool? Only then did the wife come to her senses, think about it for a while, and then said in embarrassment. Is black feces considered abnormal? Tsunade's face shook, and she thought of a possibility. Immediately, the young man's gaze was filled with pity. This guy is beyond help. Naruto seems to have identified the man's condition from his wife's words. So it should be stomach cancer. There is severe pain in the upper abdomen, and there are signs of vomiting blood and black stools, indicating that the situation is in the middle or even late stage. The wife was taken aback. Stomach cancer? What is stomach cancer? The teeth on the side are also very curious. What kind of disease is this? It sounds serious. Of course serious. Tsunade thought to himself. This is terminal illness. A terminal illness that even I cannot cure. A thought flashed in Tsunade's eyes. The kind of cell disease that can increase in value infinitely, transform and transfer at any time, cannot be completely cured at all. All that awaits the sick is a painful death. Those who died of cancer flashed before Tsunade's eyes. She once thought about treating them, but unfortunately, even Tsunade, the strongest medical ninja in the entire ninja world, could not save them. Even thinking of the horrors of those dead, cold sweat broke out from Tsunade's forehead. It was a big blow to Tsunade not to be able to save those patients. It's a pity that Tsunade thought of many ways to solve it, but unfortunately they couldn't eradicate it, they could only delay some pains. In other words, the patient with gastric cancer in front of him is hopeless. It's okay, I can cure it. Tsunade looked up suddenly, looking at Naruto. What did you say? She couldn't believe her ears. What is this kid talking about? Can he cure cancer? This is impossible. Naruto said calmly. Although it's a little troublesome, it can be cured. Then winked at Sasuke. Sasuke understood, and then knocked the patient unconscious with a face full of reluctance. Ah! The wife let out an exclamation, watching her husband being knocked unconscious, her face full of panic. What are you doing? Naruto explained. The subsequent treatment will be very painful. In order to avoid the patient from going into shock due to the pain, this is a necessary process. Please don't worry, everything we do is for the sick. So, don't have any blocking behavior when seeing the treatment process. When the wife heard this, she became even more nervous. Tsunade folded his arms. Riri looked suspicious. I want to see how you plan to treat it. This is an incurable disease. Tsunade didn't say this out loud, and B's family members were beside him. It's not good to say such insulting words in person. As a medical ninja, Tsunade understands this rule. Take care of the emotions of family members so that they do not do something irrational. Naruto ignored Tsunade's provocation and directed Shoji and Kiba to lift the patient onto the table. Afterwards, Naruto aimed at the abdomen neatly and made a big opening. There's no MRI or something here for Naruto to pinpoint the tumor's location. Hyuga's white eyes can't see through the human body to see what's going on inside the body. In order to find the location of the tumor in preparation, Naruto can only do so. Ah! The wife let out another exclamation, then rolled her eyes and fainted on the spot. This scene is really too scary. Tsunade watched Naruto's operation intently, and at the same time was monitoring, lest Naruto be young and vigorous, and heal the patient to death. Either way, Naruto is a rising star in medical ninja. Getting into trouble because of a doctor-patient dispute is not what Tsunade wants to see. What Tsunade is more worried about is that Naruto will be psychologically shadowed by this. But obviously, Naruto did not hesitate at all, and had a very clear understanding of his actions. After the laparotomy, Naruto quickly found the location of the tumor and observed the spread of surrounding cancer cells. Is it late? It's a little troublesome. Although he was talking about trouble, the movements in his hands did not slow down at all. Let the teeth help to open the abdomen, and then Naruto covered the green chakra with both hands, and removed the largest tumor directly. Then used chakra to target the spreading cancer cells. Immediately, the cancer cells on the surface died one after another, and then were absorbed by Naruto to the chakra on both hands to avoid secondary transformation. After filtering all the internal organs in the body, Naruto carefully sewed up the abdomen. Even for Naruto, cancer is a big challenge. After all, the Avatar Brigade wants to find cancer patients, and repeated operations are also a big problem. Fortunately, after the efforts of the Avatar Brigade, although the experience in treating cancer is less than other operations, there are hundreds of times. So Naruto still has a lot of confidence. What have you done? Seeing that Naruto finished the treatment, Tsunade rushed forward and asked. What did you just do to the patient's internal organs? Why did those upgraded cells fall off? Naruto said. It's very simple, the chakra knife is subdivided into ultimate, and only those cancer cells are treated without injuring the internal organs. From a microscopic point of view, it is as if the chakra knife is formed into a radioactive source that specifically kills cancer cells. I call this form of treatment chemotherapy. Tsunade was completely shocked. Chakra knife radioactive source? Chemotherapy? Specifically kills cancer cells? Is this level of precise control something that humans can do? When I dealt with it myself, I was afraid that the tumor would burst and aggravate the death of the patient. As a result, Naruto completed the treatment with such a simple pick and sweep. But it seems simple, but Tsunade, who is also a medical ninja, knows that there are many exquisite technologies in it. Especially for the control of chakra, Tsunade has no confidence to achieve it. End stitching. The patient wakes up quickly. I feel the pain is gone. The patient sat up suddenly and found that his body was so light. This was the last thing he wanted to do but couldn't. The patient jumped off the table and even ran around twice. His face was full of excitement, completely different from the weak look when he came. Then, he saw his unconscious wife. Keiko. What's wrong with you, Keiko? The patient quickly hugged his wife, crying anxiously. Teeth touched the bridge of his nose. She may have been a little frightened. Tooth felt that he was also a little frightened. Because Naruto allowed the teeth to spread the patient's open abdomen, the teeth directly saw what was going on inside the patient. This is definitely a very novel experience for teeth. At least Ya now has no appetite at all. Being able to hold back the vomiting is already a good situation for Yushishi. At this time, Keiko slowly opened her eyes under the call of her husband. 0. Yes, Ya ran. When Keiko saw her husband hugging her, her confused eyes suddenly widened. How are you? Yaren nodded repeatedly, with tears in his eyes. Yes, I'm fine, I'm really fine. As he spoke, he hugged his wife excitedly. The two cried out at the same time. The people around seemed to be able to empathize with it, and some even wiped their eyes quietly. Naruto said in an unpleasant way at this time. I'm sorry to disturb your interest, but the treatment is not over. When Keiko heard this, she quickly raised her head and asked. What's the matter, doctor? Yaren also said. But I think I'm all right, Naruto said seriously. Am I a doctor, or are you a doctor? If you knew your body, would you let yourself get this disease? Yaren suddenly didn't dare to speak. Naruto immediately softened his face and said. Because the technology is not mature enough, I have not been able to kill all the cells in your body. The treatment just now needs to be carried out for 3 consecutive days, that is to say, you have to come over tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. When Yaren heard this, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He thought there would be big trouble. If it was only for 2 days of treatment, he would have come to Q early. Thank you so much, doctor, you are worthy of being the god of medicine alive, and you can easily solve any disease in your hands. Masato pulled Keiko to kneel in front of Naruto and kowtowed 3 times. From now on, you will be my savior. If you have anything that can be of use to me, please feel free to speak up. If I dare to repent, I will be struck by lightning. Naruto shook his head and said, you'd better recuperate at ease, after all, this disease has tortured you for some time, and your body is still very weak. The husband and wife thanked each other again, and then they left happily. Naruto didn't treat this as a special event. After dealing with the bloodline on the table, he spoke. Next. Shizune sighed and came to the door of the house. Today's grocery shopping journey is not smooth. On the way, I met some casino owners. After seeing Shizune, they immediately pestered him and asked about Tsunade's whereabouts. Apparently, Tsunade hadn't visited for several days, and these casino owners missed the money in Tsunade's pocket very much. After all, he is a well-known big fat sheep in the entire gambling industry. Suddenly he disappeared for a few days, and the casino owner was worried that Tsunade would leave. On top of that, Tsunade owes them money. If Tsunade is gone, who will they ask for money? Shizune returned home only after Shizune repeatedly assured that Tsunade had not left, and even taught a few disciples who wanted to go home. Seriously, what do these guys think Tsunade-sama is for? Master Tsunade will not pay back the money. Opening the door, before Shizune could walk in, a strong smell of alcohol hit his face. Shizune involuntarily took 2 steps back and held his nose. It smells so heavy. Why is Tsunade-sama drinking again? It's obvious that yesterday's wine didn't wake up. Is it still related to Naruto and others? Master Tsunade is stimulated again? Shizune had no choice but to hold back his breath and walked into the room. Soon, she found Tsunade in the room. The same scene as yesterday. Wine bottles all over the floor, Tsunade on the small table. Well. Shizune sighed deeply, then knelt down to collect the empty wine bottles. But as soon as she started, Tsunade, who was lying on the small table, looked up. Ah, it's Shizune. Tsunade's drunken eyes discerned for a long time before he realized that it was Shizune who had returned. She said with a silly smile, it's Shizune who's back. Shizune, why did you come back so slowly? Seeing that Tsunade was so drunk, Shizune felt a headache. As usual, Tsunade wasn't originally a drunkard. But now Tsunade looks really unusual. Shizune sat down helplessly and said soothingly. Master Tsunade, you are no longer involved in the affairs of the ninja world. Why are you still entangled in these matters? Relax. Don't care about the name of the strongest medical ninja, just make yourself happy. Stop thinking about those unhappy things. Shizune kindly comforted Tsunade, but Tsunade said. Of course, how can I be the strongest medical ninja? The strongest medical ninja is of course Naruto. Eh? Shizune was taken aback. This reaction was a little different from what she expected. Then I heard Tsunade say, you don't know how powerful Naruto's medical skills are. It's a pity you didn't see it today. As he spoke, he shook his head and clicked his mouth, looking regretful. The appearance of Tsunade immediately made Shizune curious. What happened? You were so irritated yesterday, how could your attitude be reversed today? What happened? Did something special happen today? Shizune looked at Tsunade curiously. Tsunade said drunkenly. Don't you know? Hey, Naruto, today, Naruto treated cancer. Shizune's eyes widened suddenly. Cancer? Master Tsunade, the incurable disease you said? Naruto, he can cure cancer. Tsunade nodded heavily, making one worry that she might bang her head on the table. That's right, it's a disease. It's amazing, chakra knife radiation, chemotherapy. If I can do it too, have those people been saved? Tsunade's eyes became blurred, as if caught in memories. Shizune was in a deep shock. Ordinary people may not know the name of cancer, even many ninjas don't know it. But by Tsunade's side, Shizune naturally knows the name of this terminal illness. However, this incurable disease can be cured in the hands of Naruto? It is too strong. When Shizune came back to his senses, Tsunade had already fallen asleep on the small table. Patiently looking for Naruto to ask what's going on, Shizune helped Tsunade sleep peacefully and deal with the mess. By the way, give the room the same air, the smell of wine permeates the whole room, the smell is too strong. You can't sleep without the smell. After daytime, Shizune didn't go out to buy groceries this time. After all, the vegetables I went out to buy the first 2 times are enough. And Shizune was very curious about how Naruto did it. Although it is not necessarily possible to see Naruto's treatment of cancer patients today, it does not prevent Shizune from seeing and asking. So, she plans to go with Tsunade today. Yes, Shizune is sure that Tsunade will definitely go to Naruto today. Different from Tsunade's disgusting attitude before, Tsunade now highly respects Naruto. Shizune can see from Tsunade's different attitudes before and after that the medical ninja heart in Tsunade's heart may have been ignited. The heart of the strongest medical ninja that has been extinguished for more than 10 or 20 years is about to recover at this moment. After patiently waiting for Tsunade to get up, Shizune took Tsunade to eat a hangover relief breakfast, and then went out with Tsunade. This time Tsunade was not in the mood of wandering around the previous 2 days, and hurried to the place where Naruto set up a stall. Shizune followed closely behind. Soon, the two came to the street where Naruto set up a stall. At this time, the queue is still very long, but even Shizune could tell that there was nothing wrong with most of the team. It's like the person at the front of the line at this time. TT. Naruto looked up, then lowered his head and said. Next. The man suddenly lowered his head helplessly, turned and left. Tsunade doesn't care about the people in line, just come and ask directly. Where's the cancer patient from yesterday? Hasn't he come yet? Naruto looked up and said. Is it Master Tsunade? That patient has already been here. After the 2nd chemotherapy, he has recovered and does not need the 3rd chemotherapy. Tsunade was taken aback. But didn't you say to do it 3 times in a row? Naruto said. That's just a conservative estimate. The patient's recovery is better than I expected, perhaps because he is very young. So after today, that person is no longer a patient. Tsunade's eyes suddenly showed longing. Even Naruto's age can be her grandson. But Tsunade couldn't help it. Because at this age, Naruto has a terminal illness that Tsunade couldn't solve after racking his brains. Tsunade has to admire. The line is still lined up. But compared with the previous few days, most people just came to join in the fun. Naruto just repeated raising his head, lowering his head, and the next operation. Occasionally, a patient with a little problem will be solved on the spot, and the speed is very fast. As a result, the long queue was shortening at a speed visible to the naked eye. Tsunade is very disappointed. She also wants to see the process of Naruto's treatment. Although the principle has been learned from Naruto yesterday. But if you read it more, you will definitely be able to understand it faster and implement it. And Shizune watched Naruto's treatment seriously. Although these are minor problems, Shizune can still gain something from Naruto's treatment. At this moment, some noise suddenly came from the end of the team, which attracted everyone's attention. Soon, the noise gradually became louder, and many people showed surprise and even panic. Then Tsunade and Shizune saw several people running over quickly carrying 2 stretchers. This, Shizune subconsciously covered his mouth. Isn't this too miserable? Obviously the situation of the 2 people on the stretcher is very bad. Tsunade also frowned. Doctor, please save them. A middle-aged man rushed forward crying, and the person carrying the stretcher gently put the stretcher down. The middle-aged man is dressed luxuriously, and he is obviously a person who is either rich or expensive. And seeing how he was crying heartbroken, it was obvious that the 2 people on the stretcher had a lot to do with him. Naruto frowned and looked at the 2 people on the stretcher. The eyes of the others also fell on the stretcher. The outspoken teeth said directly, "Hey, are these 2 people dead? This injury is not an injury that can survive at all." Neji closed and opened his eyes, the veins around his eyes popped out, and he had already used his eyes. Then he shook his head and sighed. One of them has no breath of life, and the breath of the other is also very weak, I'm afraid even Naruto. Neji didn't finish his sentence, but everyone present knew what he meant. The reason why Neji said such words was entirely because the injuries of the 2 people on the stretcher could no longer simply be called injuries. One of them, at a glance, had multiple fractures all over his body, his hands, feet and even his body could see broken bones protruding from his body. This kind of injury did not cause death on the spot, so it can already be said that it was hard. And the other person is simply a dead person. Half of the head is broken. Can it be dead? The faces of these two people are relatively young, perhaps the sons of middle-aged men. That's why middle-aged men react in this way. Hearing the words of the people around him, the middle-aged man's eyes were full of despair, but he still looked at Naruto stubbornly. At least Naruto hasn't said no yet, there is still a glimmer of hope. Tsunade was also looking at Naruto, even though she knew in her heart that the injury was impossible to heal. But Naruto has already created many miracles in front of her, and 773 Tsunade no longer dares to make any assertions. Naruto spoke. The one on the right is already dead, and even I can't do anything about it. The light of hope in the eyes of the middle-aged man was shattered, and he staggered and fell to the ground, looking like he was about to cry. Tsunade felt the truth of Naruto's words. The one on the right is dead, there is no way, the one on the left. Another person I can treat. Naruto stretched his brows and said. However, for treatment, you need to use the right side of your body. If you agree, I can treat you right now. You have to make a decision as soon as possible, otherwise the longer the time drags on, the higher the possibility that the living person will be taken away by Shinigami. The middle-aged man stared wide-eyed, looking at his two hills. The entanglement in his heart did not make him make a decision immediately. But after only hesitating for 2 breaths, he made a decision. Please cure my son, so I will pay any price. Naruto nodded and said. Well, no matter what happens next, please don't get excited and don't disturb me. The middle-aged man nodded repeatedly. Excuse me, doctor, hurry up and treat me. Naruto didn't say much, and started the treatment immediately. The head on the right was broken, but the body was not injured much. On the other hand, the body on the left was full of hideous wounds, but there were not many injuries to the head, only some abrasions and slight bone fractures. That's why Naruto said it can be cured. Because what Naruto has to do is to transplant the intact head on the left to the corpse on the right. It happened that the corpse had just died, and the heartbeat was still beating weakly. It was precisely because of this that Naruto agreed. Tsunade hesitated to speak. Obviously, in her opinion, Naruto agreed to this treatment is really too reckless. Lack of consideration. This kind of injury is just like saving the dead, it is really incredible. But Tsunade still didn't say a word, and now that Naruto has entered a healing state, Tsunade naturally wouldn't disturb Naruto at will. Not only Tsunade, but everyone else dared not make a sound. When did they see such a scene? It's so spooky and exciting. They will not rashly speak out, and then be kicked out. Otherwise, you will have to listen to other people's bragging in the future. Wouldn't life be less fun then? Therefore, everyone closed their mouths tightly, slowed their breathing, and stared intently. Naruto's treatment is simple and rude. Just use the chakra scalpel to cut off the broken head of the person on the right, and then cut off the intact head on the left. Then there is the fine stitching. Every blood vessel, nerve, muscle, bone, etc. needs to be stitched carefully. Any mistakes may lead to the sudden death of the patient. Naruto couldn't help being careless. However, even in this situation, Naruto was able to speak while stitching. Naruto asked without raising his head, "What are they going to do?" The middle-aged man was taken aback, until Naruto repeated it, and the group realized that he was talking to him. My 2 sons are adventurous. Today they went to the mountain, but their feet slipped. Speaking of this, the middle-aged man was extremely depressed. If I can stop them from going to the mountains. Naruto said. It turns out that's why the wound is so strange. Tsunade also looked thoughtful. She also noticed abnormalities in the wound. The middle-aged man didn't understand, and suddenly thought of some bad situations. Doctor, is the wound strange? Could it be that someone is setting up my son? Having said that, the middle-aged man's eyes flashed fiercely, and he looked at the servants. Say. Who pushed my sons down? The people carrying the stretcher were obviously his subordinates. Facing the anger of the middle-aged man at this moment, they just waved their hands in horror and shook their heads. It wasn't us, master. It was really the young masters who fell down by mistake. We are wronged. Doctor, you can't wrong us, we are innocent. My lord, Naruto said impatiently, shut up. When the middle-aged man heard this, he immediately growled and said, shut up. The subordinates immediately closed their mouths, but tears flowed out of their eyes uncontrollably. Tsunade said at this time, Your two sons were not pushed down. If it was really pushed down by people like you, then there are only two corpses waiting for you, and there is no chance of rescue at all. The meaning of Tsunade is very simple and clear. If it was really the subordinates who started the attack, they would definitely not give these two young masters a chance to survive. Even if it's very small, you have to watch the two young masters dying before leaving. When the middle-aged man thought about it, he also understood. But curiosity emerged from the heart of the middle-aged man. What do you mean, doctor? The middle-aged man looked at Naruto. However, Naruto just concentrated on sewing and didn't talk to the middle-aged man anymore. Getting no answer, the middle-aged man turned to look at Tsunade. Hoping to get an answer from Tsunade here, Tsunade stared intently at Naruto's manipulation. Naruto's operation method is simple and unpretentious, but there is a unique rhythm in it. At this moment, Naruto's hands are like elves, constantly dancing. The chakra line in Naruto's hand forms a unique and regular shape under the dance, connecting the head and neck. Although Tsunade didn't see the middle-aged man's movements, he felt the middle-aged man's gaze. So Tsunade said softly, "The left side of the body is very suitable for the injury of falling off the cliff. Multiple comminuted fractures, broken bones coming out of the body and all that. But there's something wrong with the body on the right. Apart from the fatal injury to the head, there were almost no wounds on the body, only a fracture to the leg, and it was not a comminuted fracture. It doesn't look like an injury from falling off a cliff at all." The middle-aged man was a little confused. "So? My youngest son didn't fall?" As he spoke, a fierce light suddenly appeared in his eyes, and he looked at those subordinates. Tsunade rolled his eyes and said, "It has nothing to do with your subordinates, let them go." The middle-aged man withdrew his gaze, looked at Tsunade and said in a low voice, "Excuse me, what's wrong? Tell me quickly," Tsunade said with a sigh. "Haven't you figured it out yet? Your elder son, when he fell off the cliff, protected your younger son with his body. It's a pity that he tried his best, but he still couldn't protect his younger brother well." Hearing this, the middle-aged man was stunned. Not only him, but other people present were also fooled. They imagined that when a young man fell off the cliff, he still did not forget to protect his younger brother, allowing his body to hit the mountain wall. "I want to use my body to be my brother's pad." This kind of selfless dedication silenced everyone present. Then, Tsunade sighed again. There is a saying that Tsunade doesn't say to middle-aged men. Although Naruto said it can be cured, that Tsunade didn't expect much. Even if the suture is successful, the younger brother's body is a corpse after all. Whether he can survive is still unknown, and the possibility of not surviving is even higher. The middle-aged man was completely stunned. Silent tears ran down his cheeks. After a while, he said softly with a wry smile, "It's been like this since I was a child. Yuta liked to protect his younger brother since he was a child. I didn't expect to die thinking about protecting my brother. What a paw that makes me proud." There were tears in my eyes, and the pain in my heart was like a knife, but there was a sense of relief. Although, middle-aged men hope that this kind of thing will not happen. In the silent silence, everyone looked at Naruto's hands. Compared with the mentality of watching the excitement before, people now have only one thought in their minds. Save this young man. He deserves to be saved. Stitching this kind of thing is very easy for Naruto. But the real difficulty is not stitching. After the sutures were finished, Naruto used healing jutsu to completely heal all the sutures from the inside out. Until the end, there was not a single scar left on the neck. Naruto let out a long breath. Now, the preliminary preparations have been completed, and the next step is the most important step, which is also related to the success of this treatment. Is the treatment over? The middle-aged man was full of anxiety, but he only dared to speak cautiously, for fear of disturbing Naruto's state. Without waiting for Naruto to answer, Tsunade said, "Not yet, Shinju hasn't recovered yet. If the heartbeat can be restored, your son will be alive." Suddenly, the middle-aged man shut his mouth and looked at Naruto expectantly. Naruto cut open the patient's clothes, exposing the chest. Then he pressed his hand lightly on his chest. Then, the lightning flashed. Bang! The patient's body jerked and then fell back to the original place. Naruto carefully felt the condition of the heart, and then continued to increase the power in his hand. Boom! The patient's body springs up again. At this time, Naruto withdrew his hand, healed. Tsunade's eyes widened in disbelief. Tsunade is naturally aware of the method of using electric shock stimulation to restart the heart in patients with shock-induced cardiac arrest. But the situation is quite different now. Now the patient's body is a dead corpse. However, Naruto actually activated the heartbeat with only 2 electric shocks. But Tsunade couldn't believe it. Her top ninja hearing also heard the faint heartbeat from the patient's chest. Surging. The middle-aged man was also taken aback, and didn't even react immediately. Really, because Naruto is an understatement. No excitement at all. Obviously just did something that overturned the common sense of normal people. After the middle-aged man reacted, he rushed over quickly. He stretched out his hands, wanting to help his child up, but he was worried that his actions would hurt the child. After all, he had just undergone a terrifying treatment, and the middle-aged man was very worried about his child's physical condition. Don't worry. Your son's current physical condition is definitely better than yours. Naruto said so when he saw the middle-aged man's hesitation. The middle-aged man finally stretched out his hand and hugged his child. Thank you. Thank you, doctor. Naruto shook his head. Kiba and the others looked at Naruto in shock and admiration. Even if they don't know the difficulty of this, they know that it is definitely not something that just anyone can do. The mere thought of chopping off a head and transplanting it into another body is crazy. In their cognition, doesn't cutting off the head mean death? As a result, here in Naruto, it is possible to save people by cutting off their heads. It was an eye-opener. At this time, the cured patient slowly opened his eyes. The misty eyes slowly gathered. Zhao Qian's, and Yuta saw his tearful father. Father? Where's my brother? The middle-aged man couldn't stop crying when he heard it. Your brother, your brother. The middle-aged man choked up and was speechless. But his attitude made Yuta understand something. Sorry, father, I don't have one. Protect my brother. Tears welled up in Yuta's eyes. I shouldn't have brought him up the mountain, sorry. The middle-aged man hugged Yuta tightly. Don't say it, don't say anything about Tien. It's past. The middle-aged man had already lost one son, and he didn't want to lose another. If Yuta fell into the guilt and self-blame of killing his brother, he might have some negative thoughts. But the middle-aged man doesn't know how to persuade Yuta. Just thinking about Yuta's mood at this time, he feels like a knife is piercing his heart. At this time, someone said in surprise. Wait. What is the doctor doing? Can that person be saved too? When the middle-aged man heard this, he suddenly raised his head. I saw Naruto actually sewing his brother's head to the body of big brother Yuta. There was a flash of hope in his eyes. Doctor, my son. Naruto shook his head and said. There is no cure, I just helped to sew up the corpse. At least, don't lose anything when you let him leave. Although Naruto's words shattered the hope in the heart of the middle-aged man. But the middle-aged man also knows that it is thankful to be able to save a son. Yuta turned his head and looked at his side. There was a familiar body and half a familiar face. Yuhi. Yuta murmured, eyes full of pain. The middle-aged man regained his senses, looked at Yuta's expression, and a trace of panic flashed in his eyes. Don't think too much, Yuta. Live a good life. Don't be immersed in thoughts of self-blame. No one would want this kind of thing to happen. Yuhi's death is predestined. If it wasn't for the doctor's wonderful hand to rejuvenate, I'm afraid I would have lost both of you. Yuta regained consciousness, looked up slightly, and saw Naruto's face. Are you a doctor? You look so young. Because there is no need to suture all the blood vessels and muscles carefully, the suture here will be finished quickly. Naruto stood up, turned to Yuta and said. Now you can be said to be one with your younger brother. Yuta was taken aback, not understanding what Naruto meant. Naruto frowned. I thought you saw it. Naruto's gaze turned to Utahara's body. Does this body look familiar? Yuta followed Naruto's gaze and landed on the corpse. This time, Yuta didn't look at the face, but stared at the body. After a while, Yin Taituan ran over. It turned out that the familiar body was felt because it was his body. My body is there, and my body now. Yu was at a loss, but quickly realized. My head is attached to my brother's body, Naruto said. I can imagine that you desperately want to protect your brother, but unfortunately, the sky fails. Maybe the place where you fell hit your head. Maybe your protection is not comprehensive. 953, after all, you two are about the same size. In short, you were dying, but you survived. As for your brother, His head was shattered and he died on the spot, but his body is relatively intact under your protection. That's why I was able to save you. Yuta lowered his head, looking at his current body. He touched his chest with trembling hands, feeling the hot heartbeat. This is Yuki's body. I'm with Yuhi now? The middle-aged man nodded repeatedly. That's right, Yuhi will always be by your side. So don't have bad thoughts, you hear me? I have already lost a son, and I must not lose you again. Tsunade watched this scene with a complicated expression. For Naruto's medical skills, Tsunade can only be shocked. But part of Naruto's success lies in Yuta's strong desire to survive. Perhaps, everything is inevitable. Falling off the cliff, the big brother desperately used his body to protect his younger brother. But in the end, the big brother survived, but the younger brother died on the spot. This dramatic scene, seemingly a coincidence, provided the best results for Naruto's treatment. Otherwise, if the two bodies are full of scars, I am afraid that even Naruto will be difficult to treat. But what Tsunade didn't know was that Naruto just chose the most convenient treatment. Even without his younger brother Yuki's body, Yuta's injuries are just a little cumbersome in Naruto's view. There are too many wounds to be treated and it takes a lot of time. In Naruto's opinion, transplantation is the fastest and most convenient method. At least Naruto doesn't need to deal with many wounds on Yuta's body. It's better to just change your head and solve the problem at once. Let's go, Shizune, Tsunade said softly. Let's go back. The picture of the middle-aged man holding Yuta reminded her of her bad memories. At that time, the feeling of powerlessness came to my heart, which made Tsunade subconsciously want to stay away. Shizune asked strangely, "Huh? Are you leaving now?" However, Shizune turned around and saw Tsunade's back. In desperation, Shizune could only chase after him. Just when Shizune wondered why Tsunade left, he saw the sad look on Tsunade's face. Shizune understood immediately. Tsunade was thinking of her uncle, Ruduan. And maybe Tsunade's younger brother, Nawaki. Then, Shizune fell silent and left with Tsunade. Tsunade's instinct was nothing to Naruto. He just continued to set up a stall to see a doctor step by step. But Naruto understood that there was no need to stay here any longer. Staying here is a waste of time. I thought that seeing the legendary medical ninja Tsunade, maybe I could learn some experience or knowledge from Tsunade in terms of medical ninjutsu. However, judging from the results, Tsunade's accumulation over the past few decades is no higher than that of the 3000 Clone Brigade. On the contrary, the accumulation of the 3000 Clone Brigade is higher. I have to say that Shadow Clone is really a very buggy ability. Of course, the premise is that the spirit and body of the main body can support it, otherwise it will be a double-edged sword. The number of people queuing decreased rapidly. There were no special patients either. This kind of patient itself is rare to see, and naturally it is impossible to encounter it every day. Meeting a cancer patient yesterday was also a very surprising thing for Naruto. After all, in the ninja world where wars are frequent, many people don't even have the chance to get cancer and die. Busy until the afternoon, there are no people in line. After solving the eye disease of the last patient, Naruto started to clean up the booth. Huh? Did you close the stall so early today? Tooth asked curiously. The others were also puzzled. Isn't there still some time before the sun goes down? Are you hungry? Maybe Naruto has an inspiration and wants to practice. If you want to practice, you must not forget me, Naruto. Let us burn the flame of youth together. The others didn't see it, but only Shikamaru and Sasuke saw what Naruto really meant. Sasuke couldn't help curling his lips. Are you finally going to leave this place where the birds don't shit? Sasuke said softly, a hint of impatience flashed in his eyes. Staying in this place for several days, and also being Naruto's anesthesia assistant for several days, made Sasuke feel like a little brother under Naruto. This feeling made Sasuke very unhappy. He didn't want to stay here long ago. Shikamaru was able to tell, simply because he was smart and good at observing. And Shikamaru is well aware of Naruto's purpose. Said to find Tsunade to learn medical ninjutsu. In fact, it is more to let myself get exercise and the opportunity to actually operate. After all, at Konoha Hospital, those doctors would definitely not let Naruto have the chance to operate. It's not that I don't trust Naruto, but I'm worried about the resulting disputes. After all, when a doctor treats patients, he needs to shoulder responsibility. And Naruto is too young, Even if his medical ninjutsu is amazing, it is difficult to get the approval of patients. After all, Naruto's age is here. But if Naruto travels abroad and spreads his medical strength widely. In this way, after Naruto has gained enough reputation in the Land of Fire, patients will naturally have much more confidence in him. Certainly, Shikamaru was overthinking it. Actually, Naruto's idea is simple. That's when Naruto feels like he hasn't reached his limit. In other words, the doppelgangers haven't reached their limit yet. Every newly obtained ability will be conquered by the Avatar Brigade with all its strength, until it cannot obtain a significant promotion position in a short period of time. What Naruto was waiting for was when the Clone Brigade reached this limit. As for why he left Bamboo Street, it was naturally because there were no more patients here. A doctor, staying in a street with no patients, of course, is pointless and just a waste of time. There are no more patients here, and there is no point for me to stay. Naruto simply answered everyone's questions and continued to pack his luggage. Everyone thought about it and found that it was indeed the case. I didn't feel it 2 days ago, but today this feeling is very obvious. Most of the people in line are people who are not sick and just want to pretend to be sick so that Naruto can stay here. After all, anyone wants to keep someone as highly skilled as Naruto. Many people even took the opportunity of queuing up to see a doctor to propose a deal. As long as Naruto is willing to stay on Pamphlet Street, he can ask for as much money as he wants. But Naruto itself is not a poor man. Not to mention his meatball shop, if he is short of money and goes directly to the underground world, it will be a large amount of money in the account. Money means nothing to Naruto. After packing until the sun was about to set in the afternoon, Naruto and everyone had their last meal here. Let's go directly after eating. Don't you take a break? Teeth feel that this is too urgent. Obviously you can rest on the street for one night before leaving. Naruto said. Without further ado, the patients here are gone, but it doesn't mean that the patients in other places also disappeared. As soon as these words came out, everyone understood that Naruto did not intend to go back to Konoha directly. Shikamaru asked curiously, so do you have a goal next? Could it be the place where other legendary ninjas live in seclusion? Like Jiraiya or something? Naruto shook his head and said. Follow the map and go back, and stop when you encounter a place where there are people. Everything is up to fate. Shikamaru nodded, and the sliver of anticipation in his heart disappeared. At this time, Tsunade found them. Affectionately excited, he stepped forward and grabbed Naruto. Are you leaving now? Why don't you stay a little longer? Shizune, who followed behind, said apologetically. We heard that you packed your bags in the afternoon, so come and have a look. Master Tsunade doesn't seem to be willing to let you go. Teeth held his head and said nonchalantly. I can't bear to part with us, so why don't Master Tsunade just go with us? Boom. Shikamaru slapped Teeth on the back of the head, and said angrily. If you can't say it, don't talk. Tsunade ignored the words of the two guys and just stared at Naruto. All she cares about is Naruto, who is a master of medical ninjutsu. Naruto said. I don't need to stay here anymore. There are no more patients here, and I feel that my strength cannot be improved here. In order to improve my strength, I think it is most important to continue traveling and hone my medical skills. Naruto said seriously. Tsunade grabbed Naruto's shoulder excitedly. Where are you going? Naruto shook his head and said. I don't know, everything depends on fate. Maybe in the Land of Fire, maybe go back to other countries. In short, everything depends on fate. Tsunade was suddenly a little disappointed. It wasn't that she didn't have the urge idea to simply go with Naruto. But the long-term comfortable life made her not want to change her life. However, after today, some changes may occur. Tsunade let go of his hand, lowered his head and said. You are obviously so powerful, far surpassing me, but you still work so hard and are so devout. She looked up with a self-deprecating smile on her face. Fortunately, I still bear the name of the strongest medical ninja in the ninja world. Really are. Tsunade shook his head helplessly. Compared with Naruto, he felt like a joke. Naruto's noble sentiments, as well as the modest spirit of learning, are so dazzling in Tsunade's eyes. And how can Tsunade, who is addicted to gambling and alcohol every day, be called the original Tsunade princess? There was a look of shame on Tsunade's face, at this time. Naruto's palm patted Tsunade's shoulder. It's okay, as long as you work hard, you will be able to surpass me sooner or later. Master Tsunade, you are the Sannin in our Konoha legend, This is not a big problem for you at all. Whenever you surpass me, come back to Sleepy Leaf. Naruto's encouragement was like a hammer in Tsunade's heart. If someone else said that, Tsunade would have dismissed it. But Naruto's medical ninjutsu has been recognized by Tsunade, and even Tsunade admires it very much. The unbelievable medical strength displayed by Naruto in the past 2 days is completely beyond Tsunade's comprehension. Naruto has a special meaning like an idol for the current Tsunade. Therefore, when Naruto's words fell into her ears, they naturally had different meanings. At this moment, Tsunade only felt that his blood was boiling and his whole body was full of energy. At this time, it was time for Naruto and the others to set off. Then I'll wait for you in the village when you come back, Ganyan. Naruto smiled, then turned and left. The others left after greeting Tsunade one after another. Meanwhile, little Sakura and Ino Pig hesitated. After all, Tsunade is the ultimate idol of these female ninjas. Even if it is inferior to Naruto in terms of medical ninjutsu, Naruto cannot compare to the special significance for female ninjas. Little Sakura and Ino are eager to learn medical ninjutsu from Tsunade. But after struggling, they still left. After all, they are still children. If they want to learn from Tsunade, let alone whether Tsunade will agree, they need to at least tell their family members. Otherwise, you will run away from home. They're gone. Shizune sighed, looking at Naruto as they receded in the background. Master Tsunade, let's go back to rest, huh? Shizune turned his head while talking, and let out an exclamation when he saw Tsunade. Master Tsunade, are Dao crying? Tsunade touched his cheek in a daze. It does have traces of wetness on it, Shizune said hesitantly. If you really miss Naruto and the others, why don't you take this opportunity to go back with them? Tsunade wiped his cheek, pulled Shizune away. Didn't you hear what Naruto said? I made an agreement with him. After my medical ninjutsu surpasses him, I will go back, and he will wait for me in the village. Rest? I won't have that word in my dictionary from now on. We must hurry. Start studying medical ninjutsu now. Shizune's eyes widened suddenly. After leaving Bamboo Street, Naruto and the others did not return to Konoha immediately. Instead, they stayed for a long time along the way. Whenever you encounter a village or small town, you will stop there, and Naruto will set up a stall there for treatment. Small villages are free, and small towns are charged. And Naruto's reputation gradually spread. Everyone knows that there is a child named Naruto in Konoha. His medical skills are like a god of medicine, and any difficult and miscellaneous diseases can be cured in his hands. And in Konoha's 3rd generation, they naturally also knew the news. It's really scary. It's only been a while before such rumors spread. 3rd generation sighed, took a sip while hanging the pipe, and then spat out a puff of smoke. I don't know who is better than Tsunade. If you just look at age, any normal person will choose Tsunade. After all, the age difference between Naruto and Tsunade is too big. But 3rd generation knows Naruto all too well. Naruto can't take it too far with common sense. At least Naruto's current achievements, 3rd generation can't think of anyone who can be born at Naruto's age. Whoosh. An Anbu shows up at Hokage's office. Master Hokage, Naruto and the others are back. At this moment Naruto is walking this way. As for the rest of the group, they went to the yakiniku restaurant of the Akamichi clan. 3rd generation nodded slowly. Anbu flashed and disappeared. After a while, there was a knock on the office door. 3rd generation withdrew his gaze from the window and sat down in his seat. Come in. Naruto pushed the door open and entered. A friendly smile automatically appeared on 3rd generation's face. I'm back. How's the harvest? Naruto said with a smile. Not bad, Grandpa 3rd generation. 3rd generation nodded with a smile, and then asked meaningfully. So, have you seen Tsunade? I hope you haven't seen it, otherwise, if Tsunade reveals some old stories, wouldn't the image of the old man in your heart plummet? Naruto nodded with a smile. I saw it, and I thought it was a very elder. 3rd generation's heart twitched, but there was no expression on his face. Oh? How? Did she say anything? Like wanting something back? Naruto shook his head and said. Master Tsunade doesn't seem to be planning to come back now, and he didn't say anything specifically. However, after we met, I found that Mrs. Tsunade is very amiable and treated us very kindly, which made me feel like a family member. And in terms of medical ninjutsu, he spared no effort to teach me, which has benefited me a lot. Third generation said with a smile. That's right, Tsunade is such a person, and it's a good thing that you have gained something. Fortunately, it seems that Tsunade didn't say anything that shouldn't be said. But when did Tsunade become so enthusiastic? With that proud personality, how can he still give others a good look? But Naruto wouldn't lie to himself. Maybe guessed Naruto's identity? But Tsunade doesn't have much to do with Namikaze Minato in Uzumaki Kushina. Third generation is puzzling. After Naruto reported his actions, he said. Grandpa third generation, if there is nothing else, then I will leave first. Third generation nodded absently. Well, go ahead and have fun. Naruto's eyes narrowed, but instantly returned to normal. After he nodded, he said goodbye and left. You really know my whereabouts like the back of your hand. Although I took Anbu back when I left the village. But after returning, Anbu posted it immediately. This does not mean that third generation has a strong desire to control, and must know where Naruto is. In fact, Danzo is undoubtedly the most deceitful among the sleepy leaves. Just look at the root of Danzo's creation, and you will know that this kind of team that uses sealing techniques to enforce loyalty is itself derived from Danzo's deformed desire to control. Forget it. Don't think about it. Anyway, the third generation is under my control. With this, it's only a matter of time to wait until the future to master the entire Konoha. Naruto withdrew his thoughts, walked quickly towards the agreed barbecue restaurant and... When they got to the place, the aroma of barbecue meat overflowed immediately. It smells so good, it really deserves to be the home of Akamichi. With a glimmer of expectation, Naruto walked into the store, and went to the private room under the guidance of the waiter. At this point, the barbecue has started inside. Mainly because Choji couldn't help it. Letting Choji guard the barbecue, but not letting him grill it, is undoubtedly torture for C. Anyway, it's just a small gathering, there's no need to pay special attention to anything. It's finally here, but why did it take so long to report? Teeth complained. It's all Choji's fault, the smell of roasting is so craving. Naruto said with a smile. If you want to eat, just eat it, you don't need to wait for me. Little Sakura waved her hand and said. Okay, stop talking about these polite words, and start eating quickly. Taste Naruto, I baked it specially for you, it's just right. Not to be outdone, Ino quickly took out a plate with a small pile of barbecue and handed it to Naruto. Try mine. Mine is made with Choji's secret sauce, it's delicious. Naruto's kindness was hard to turn down, so he could only refuse anyone who came, and ate them all. Soon, the table was full of the sizzling sound of barbecue, and there were very few conversations. It is also because of this period of time that they have not had a good meal. Now everyone is like a starved ghost reincarnated, only focusing on eating, not knowing what to say at all. After eating almost 80% full, everyone's speed slowly slowed down. Certainly. Choji and Hinata's speed still didn't slow down. I didn't expect to travel to so many places during the winter vacation. Shikamaru held the back of his head with his hands, and lay his body back, with his whole body pressed against the back of the chair. Fortunately, make it big before school starts. When Ya heard this, his face suddenly became bitter. I hate going to classes, or I should say I hate taking those classes that Naruto proposed. For teeth, those courses are too difficult. A simple brain cannot accept such complex calculations. Hey! I have to face those annoying mathematics, physics and chemistry again. Tooth slumped on the table and couldn't help complaining. Xiaoli Janai's face twitched immediately when he heard the words.